I'm Christine Giordano. I'm here with Cheryl Alston. She is the past, recently retired Executive Director and Chief Investment Officer for the Dallas Employees Retirement Fund. Now, despite two recessions and numerous economic challenges, she has been able to deliver an average return rate of approximately 9% over the past 20 years. Also a presidential appointee to the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation Advisory Committee, she is known for her strong leadership on a national level and her ability to navigate as both a visionary and sometimes a contrarian, and a solid leader who creates a great culture for the fund to succeed. We'll go over what some of her career lessons have been, as well as when she found it best to be a contrarian and how that made a difference, how she established the right working culture, and how she created an environment for her fund to score those high returns over the past 20 years. Welcome, Cheryl, and we're honored to be giving you a Lifetime Achievement Award from Markets Group.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you don't mind, let's start from the top. First of all, what was your career like before you became the CIO and the executive director of the city of Dallas?
So, Christine, I started out in investment banking. And so I worked on Wall Street and had the experience of working in the investment banking area, a real estate division. I moved on after that to Cigna and worked with their investment group. And then about 20 years ago, I moved down to Dallas, Texas, and met a wonderful mentor who told me about the position as executive director and chief investment officer. And I went to go interview with the board, and the board called me before I got home from the interview to tell me I had the job, or offered me the job. And so that's the road that led me to my most recent role as executive director and CIO.
Congratulations on those high returns. So 9% over the past 20 years. That's through recessions, that's through dips. What were some of the keys to doing that right?
Well, I think the keys are a few things. One is around being a long-term investor. And so I think back to like the first one, 2008, and talking with the board about just the markets. Everything was going south at that point. But one of the things that we realized is that if you buy quality, it comes back. And so that was one of the decisions that we made to become active in the secondary market for private equity. So when there were foundations and endowments that had liquidity issues, we decided to go purchase secondaries. We also were paying out exit queues for core real estate, and we went and selected some managers. And so although people were trying to, at that point, we felt that, especially for core real estate, that was a really safe bet. And we also did expanded in high yield at that point. If you remember, in 2009, I think the high yield return was over 50%. And so I think having a strong relationship with your board, really thinking about as a long-term investor, and thinking about your asset allocation and where you can be opportunistic. At that time, and with that discussion with the board, we were able to move quickly and take advantage of some of the dislocations in the market.
And in developing that strong relationship with your board, I mean, you're in an environment where sometimes every indicator in the market is pointing in a certain direction. Every pundit on TV is telling exactly what people should be doing. And yet you're a contrarian. You're ready to snatch up what other people are not doing. Let's get into the weeds on that a little bit. How did you handle that?
Well, it's interesting. When I first started, it was a very knowledgeable investor who told me, he said, experience does matter. And at first I was young and I was like, yeah. But now I realize staying calm in these markets, focusing on the data and focusing on sticking to your core investing principles is what really helps you in the end. I think also over the 20 years, we've seen several firms that did not do well or were, and interesting enough, if you stick to your core due diligence principles and don't get caught up in hype and really focus on the fundamentals, we were able to see that we weren't able to not invest in some things that did not go well for many investors. And so that, as a culture, from a board perspective, thinking strategically, looking long term, focusing on asset allocation, sticking to our due diligence is just really, really important.
And as a past presidential appointee of the PBGC board. Now, this is interesting because that's usually dealing with corporate funds, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe you can kind of illustrate what your role was there and
oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so the advisory committee is made up of people that are representing the corporation and some that are representing the members. And I think as an executive director and CIO, I'm always focusing on the members, the retirees, the active members. And I think one of the core principles that we have is making sure that people get what's earned, right? What they earned. And then also from a cost perspective, being as efficient as possible so that it doesn't cost anyone too much. I don't want it to cost the city or the voters a lot of money. I don't want it to cost the corporations or the employees or retirees. So I think that is the perspective that I brought. So during my tenure, what we focused on was obviously the investments and asset allocation. They are absolutely long-term investors. Their philosophy was very different from their members because they needed to do well when the members were not doing well. And for example, in 2008, PBGC did extremely well, and because they are kind of the backstop or, for the corporations. For the members, what I was really focused on was making sure that each member received what they earned. And I think sometimes just even changing your mindset from, the member having to reach out to you to contact you, to reversing that so that the organization reaches out to the members to say, oh, guess what? You have a retirement here, and here's what you need to do in order to receive that retirement, or if you have beneficiaries. So I think what I brought to the table was true investing experience because I was still an institutional investor. And then I think also really looking at the lens from the members to make sure that we are creating an efficient organization that honor the mission of the PBGC.
You were able to help thousands of members get the benefits that they deserved. You were mentioning how sometimes a member might change jobs and or the company might go out of business and they're owed a pension or they're owed some funds and they didn't understand that. So
they didn't.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think what was helpful was encouraging the PBGC to they were doing some outreach, but they could have done more. And so they did. Once we talked about and they saw, because my personal philosophy for the Dallas ERF was that if you're owed funds from the market, we will find you, right? We will find you, you will find your heirs. We will make sure. I don't want the money to sit in the fund if it's due to someone. And so taking that philosophy to a national level to make sure that we're reaching out to the people, because you never know what health situation they're going through. And when they find out that they have an opportunity to get a steady income from their retirement that they maybe have forgotten that they had, or they did not think they were going to receive. I mean, it's a huge moment. I know for my staff who was responsible for that, they loved those calls because the people were so appreciative. They were so thankful. They didn't know. And now, they said that's some of the happiest moments when they were able to tell people that, that there is a source of income that they earned.
Isn't that a beautiful call to make? You're also known for staff development and time management. As a CIO and as an executive director, you've been extremely careful to recognize the human in your staff members and perhaps family priorities, and being able to create a culture that incorporated all of that. And turned out longevity was a big part of that. The staff stayed. Can you talk to me about how you created that and balanced your own schedule at the same time?
Oh, absolutely. So, like I said, just probably like you, I've worked in many different corporate environments. I've worked in investment banking where you've worked 90 hours a week and you had all 4 weeks of vacation at the end of the year. And so I've worked in different ones. What I wanted to create from a culture when I started was what I call results-oriented, life-friendly. So results-oriented, the sense of we have to get all of our work done. Our customer service ratings have to be 95% or better in terms of excellence. We have to, from investments perspective, we have to obviously maximize the investment returns we can in a risk-adjusted way, but in a thoughtful way. However, life-friendly in the sense of I realize that everyone is, a son, a daughter, a mother, a father, and so and that you should be able to bring your whole self to work. And so how I describe that is, and I've told this when I started with my staff, I said, listen, if I schedule a meeting at 11 a.m. and your daughter has a kindergarten Halloween party at 11 a.m., then you need to come in and tell me that you have a Halloween party. And then I will move. There's nothing magical about 11, right? And so I will move the meeting. Because I think that it's very important for people to be able to make those events. And, the Halloween party is 45 minutes an hour, but the minute the parent walks in the room, it means the world to the child and the world to the parent as well. And so I want them to have those moments and not feel they have to hide that. And so with that, what I will see, another example, I have an IT person who said he wanted to coach his daughter's team. And so I said, all right, well, just adjust your schedule so that you can get out before school ends and so that you can do that. And he can get a job, IT, he can get a job anytime he wants, but he stays because he appreciates having that flexibility. And I will say, if anything from an IT issue happens over the weekend, he's the first person there, unasked. Mm-hmm. He knows. And so I think that kind of respect and commitment and bringing your whole self to work. And this was before the pandemic, during the pandemic, post-pandemic, we've always had this culture. I think it's really important. And because of that, when people leave me, it's predominantly because retirement. They reach their retirement age and then that's worth. But I think that what employees want, obviously, is fair compensation. Absolutely. They want to be able to learn, right? And grow as in their skill set, grow their soft skills. They want to be able to grow as a person, and they want the flexibility to manage their life.
So you're also on a number of corporate boards now, having retired. You're advising family offices on investments. Can you go into that? A lot of people want to frame their careers in such a way that they'll be attractive to the corporate board upon retirement. They also want to make it into the C-suite that you did. Can you give us some last career advice for those who are hoping to do all that you've done?
Well, I think a lot of the corporate boards, what they're looking for is certain skill sets, right? So they're either it's audit, it's investments, it's HR, IT. So I think whatever your skill set is, really try to get to the highest level in that. And for me, obviously as a chief investment officer, as executive director, they're also looking for, do you have the skill sets that come in a C-suite? So you see the entire issues of a corporation, how to manage a corporation through different sets and challenges. So I would tell people to focus on that. Interestingly enough, the right board will find you, right, in terms of that. And so, that would be my advice, is really focus on your skill set, focus on your managerial or strategic skills around that, and then really just let people know that you're interested in serving on a corporate board, a foundation or endowment, or there's a lot of foundation endowments that I've did just really to help them out, especially on the investments side, and just on a volunteer basis, I would help them.
And Natalie has been kind of at your fund long enough, I'm guessing, to be mentored by you. And now she is the CIO of City of Dallas. What are some things that you would like to pass on so that everyone can have that experience of being mentored by their CIO and hopefully becoming the next CIO to that seat?
As a CEO or board member, I always focus on succession planning. And that's one of the things that when I'm sitting in the board seat, I talk to the CEO about a lot, which is what happens. I was in a situation on a board where the person had a major health issue and they left the next day. And luckily, I was the next in line. I was the deputy, so I was able to step up and do that. So I think for a lot of the CEOs focused on succession planning, Natalie, so what you may or may not know, so I was executive director and CIO. The board split those positions. My deputy director, who's been with me almost 10 years, he became executive director.
Oh,
And which his name is David Etheridge. My deputy CIO, which is Natalie Jenkins Sorrell, which you just mentioned, became the CIO.
oh,
And so you have to identify great talent and groom them and give them the opportunities to show their skills. And then, because the best scenario for me, I think, is when you can grow someone, they understand the organization, they understand, and they can move up into that role. And that is the best thing I've seen. I have helped actually with corporations and foundations and endowments. I've helped 6 CEO transitions, and I've seen sometimes you have to go outside, right? But most of the time, if you can develop the right people and mentor them, and create a pipeline. So, they move up, somebody has to move into their seat, right? And so that to me is the best situation for a corporation if they really focus on true succession planning and identifying and developing people.
beautiful. Thank you so much, Cheryl. This has been a wonderful interview for me, and congratulations again on your lifetime achievement.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.